Hey, welcome to episode 29 of Stuff of the Week, wherein I yap to you about some or all of the random stuff that I have read, watched, added to my collection, or have done during the past week or so, give or take a day. So let's start off with the purchases. First, um, I got a Mufo-san Godzilla. This is the big one, and I think it's sold out now. Not too sure. But it's a big old adorable. Look at that thing. It's the big one. And got the dorsal fins there. This is just so cute. I just love it so much. Yay! Also, it makes a great companion with the shark Mufo-san that Christopher gave me for my birthday. So there you go. Yes, Godzilla, kittens. I don't know if Mongo and Tiberius are going to come in today because we have one of our nephews in the house and he's playing with the kitties. So he's got them distracted. But let me put you right there. I don't know if for some reason the floor is visible in this video. So and there's a little dead space over here. I don't know if it's going to show up uh, when I upload it or not. But I had to clean out some of the disheveled stacks of dusty guck that were there because I want to have at least some of my disheveled hell pit look presentable when I'm showing you off the stuff. So, okay, the other thing, another purchase worth mentioning was that I got Vinegar Syndrome's release of Abel Ferrara's Body Snatchers from 1993, released, I think, in limited release in 94. But yeah, this was I had been looking forward to this. This was a really interesting uh, entry into the Body Snatchers genre or franchise. There had been the Don Siegel film in 1956, the Philip Kaufman film in 1978, and then Robert H. Solo, who produced the Kaufman film. And actually, Kaufman had worked on the movie Body Snatchers for a while, but he ultimately didn't wasn't involved with the project. But they had wanted to do another one, and a lot of cult writers actually worked on the script. Larry Cohen, who was best known for It's Alive, God Told Me to, Q, the Winged Serpent, and the stuff. And oh my God, the stuff. I forgot to put the stuff canister out. This is the stuff of the week, and I have to have the stuff canister. I may have to start over. No. Um, but Larry Cohen worked on the story for the film or did work on it. And then after that, Stuart Gordon and Dennis Paoli, who had a team responsible for Reanimator, From Beyond, and other films of that nature, they wrote the script. That was then reworked by Nicholas St. John, who was the frequent and collaborator or the screenwriter for Abel Ferrara. He's Nicholas St. John has written um, most uh, of Ferrara's films, from which he started with The Driller Killer. Then there was Ms. 45, uh, Fear City. Then I think it was China Girl, King of New York, Bad Lieutenant. Then it came to Body Snatchers and on and on. But this does have a booklet for the film filled with Um, Still images. The most probably Meg Tilly's scream is probably one of the most famous moments in the film. And this is falling. Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna hide? Because there's no one like you left. It's a um, little thing. There's an interesting way of body snatching in this one too. So I do remember seeing it, and being really unnerved by it. So, and it while it has a certain the ending. Oops, sorry, hit the desk. The ending of this movie, while not as blatant as the ending of um, the 1978 invasion of the Body Snatchers, it continues it's ambiguous, and I think the actual last line of dialogue that's spoken, although they do repeat what Carol, Meg Tilly's character, says of where are you going to go, where are you going to hide, because there's no one like you left. There's the last line that the star Gabrielle Anwar says is, "How long can you stay awake?" But yeah, this is a really good. It's a stylistic film, a lot of really great um, transformation effects, and just really interesting ideas and variations on the theme. And while it's not as iconic as the previous films, it's a solid it's a solid entry. That's actually really it's good for what it is. Elevated by the people who worked on it. Although I think Roger Ebert when was rather dismayed with it. I think his review he mentioned that he thought that this was a that Abel Ferreira this was had become a pod person making this movie. That this was that there was something oddly soulless about it. But there's some images in this movie that are just really unnerving, and it's really well done. So I'm glad I got this in my collection finally. I think honestly, this might be the first Blu-ray of a Body Snatcher movie I have. I did have the original on Laserdisc for a while, and I have yet to get Philip Kaufman's remake. I almost bought it at Night Owl Video in Brooklyn because they had the Scream Factory disc there, but I opted for the Criterion Videodrome and the Criterion Godzilla versus Beyonce. But if it's still there when I go back, I might pick it up. I don't know. But yeah, Abel Ferreira's Body Snatchers, with contributions from Larry Cohen and Stuart Gordon and Dennis Paoli. Um, where are you going to go? Where are you going to hide? Because there's no one like you left. Okay. Those are all the purchases. Pretty low key there. Puzzle wise, I went through Bodega Cat pretty quickly. So here's that assembly video. That's a beautiful one. Uh, it's going to get disassembled and boxed. Although, my sister-in-law did say it looked like it, was suitable for framing, and yeah, it is. But I had fun putting that one together. Next up will be Dracula in Dr. Seward's library by Edward Goria, the pomegranate one, and that's 500 pieces, and I'm probably going to start that tomorrow. Reading wise, I'm in the last 10 pages of The Roads to Rome, and it's interesting because I've been kind of like procrastinating uh, doing the review, but I'm running out of week to do this stuff of the week video. In fact, I'm starting to think about doing stuff of the week every other week, but we'll see. I mean, I just kind of like hit a speed bump in my production and in my just like, oh, I'm kind of tired. I don't want to do this. And like, this isn't a job, Chad. You're doing this because you enjoy it. Do you enjoy doing it at this moment? No? Well, then don't. Read the book, watch a movie, do something else. Have fun. This is what it's all about, having fun. And I was like, okay. And I went and had fun and I'm all right. And I shot ads from the week yesterday, and today I'm shooting stuff of the week. And stuff of the week will air before ads from the week because that's how we roll around here. I do everything in reverse. But back to the roads to Rome. In fact, let me get my handy dandy notebook here where I have my notes about it. And now, the interesting thing about the roads to Rome is that um, I it's been about 40 or 40 years since I probably last took a Western Civ history course. Definitely since high school, definitely in like a prerequisite history course in at San Francisco State. But most of my history reading or the area of history that I like to focus on and read about is usually the formation of the American uh, empire and the beginning of the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th. So about like 1890 through about 1945 or so, the end of World War II. So that period of time is usually the 1910s and the 1920s, and that's the area that really just I find that period of history to be fascinating. There's other people who are like really, Civil War, post-Civil War, you know, uh, Jim Crow South, and what have you. But Catherine Fletcher's this area of history, which honestly, despite the memes about where there's like this thing where they ask a ask a ask a white man. I don't know, maybe a white man. So ask a man if he's been thinking about the what he thinks about the Roman Empire. And there's like, oh, I don't know, it was a big thing a while back. And how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And I'm like, I don't think about the Roman Empire at all that much, um, outside of a historical thing. I've been to Italy a couple of times. I enjoy Italy. I love Italy. But the Roman Empire is just one of many. The British Empire, the Ottoman Empire. I mean, there's a couple other empires in there that I probably forgot. The Galactic Empire. You know, but the American Empire. Um, but uh, most of my knowledge of the Roman Empire comes from either History of the World Part One, well, or Caligula. which is nuts when you think about it. NVTS, nuts. But when I started this, I did struggle with it. I'm not going to lie. Your mileage might vary. But yeah, I was talking with Tanya about it at one point, and she asked me what it was like, or how was it, or what it was, and my my comment was, I'm like, it's a little it's a little dense for me, um, and it's as dry as unbuttered toast. But I did say that the bread was delicious. I mean, it's tasty bread. It's just dry unbuttered toast, and that again, it's just a large portion of it. While I recognize some of the names and some of the people, most of from like pop culture, like Julius Caesar and what have you. Um, there were a lot of like details and a lot of stuff that was just like given that I was like, I don't know what this is. So, and that is a shortcoming on my part, not a shortcoming on the book's part, I think. I mean, I would say I don't think it would be a introductory read, or it's just one of the. But it's not really history, and it's also not really travel. It's kind of like a mixture of both. And it did get across some interesting ideas about the the evolution of civilization, and and the roads being kind of like the fingers or the web of the Roman Empire, where the roads were constructed both for military purposes, also for communication purposes, postal service purposes, and also, of course, trade routes and whatnot. And the roads closer to Rome, of course, were bigger and better maintained than the ones that were further and further away. But um, the way that townships or trading centers would form around the roads, I mean, you can see that in going back to contemporary history, you could see how that is echoed with the roads of the United States and Route 66, and when the highways were built, and Route 66 was no longer used, the towns that went along Route 66 all shriveled up and died because they moved all the traffic. The blood flow of the economy moved to the highways, and that's where and you have now these pockets of like service stations and hotels and stuff. And back in the days of the Roman Empire, that's what was around. And also, they probably weren't all that safe. I think you had a lot more highway robbery back then than you would probably have now. But how post Roman Empire, and as the British Empire came up, and how other Napoleon and whatnot, how the roads were like transformed and used. How, let's see, post Roman Empire, you had the transition with the church, and you had Christianity that evidently started doing pilgrimages to visit holy sites, and which is really big. And then you would have uh, the tourism trade eventually kind of like grow from that as well, where people would also, and there was a great little moment in here where I was like, I realized this is me here, where they were talking about um, the the cultural or literary tourism that it's kind of like the atheist uh, pilgrimages, where And I'm like that I realize that I've been doing, and that I see people even here, on the booktube channels I watch and everything, where people would go to visit the Robert E. Howard house in Cross Plains, Texas, where, I've gone to the Hemingway houses in both Key West and in Cuba. And, I want to go to the Robert E. Howard house in Cross Plains, and I want to go to Roanoke in Mississippi, which was where William Faulkner lived and wrote. I want to go there and see the house of where that Nobel laureate lived and created. And it was interesting that I could see myself in that. And it gets up to World War II, and then it's at post World War II where, more contemporaneous, some of the, like, the the last few pages. And I'm like, well, I don't think there'll be any surprises like, whoa, jumping out. It's not an Agatha Christie novel. But if you are predisposed to this kind of material, I would recommend it. Again, for me, I didn't know enough about the subject matter to truly appreciate some of the stuff, and there were times that I wish that there had been more detail and more context in scenes or in sections of the book. But I nonetheless, it's a book I enjoyed reading. I would recommend it to those who are interested, but I will say that I also found it rather dry. So make of that what you will. But that was the reading. The Roads to Rome, a history by Catherine Fletcher. And she evidently also wrote a book called The Beauty and the Terror, an alternative history of the Italian Renaissance, which was the book of the year in 2020 in the Times. Um, and I might pick that one up because that sounds really interesting as well. Because it's, you know, always interested in brushing up. And it's also interesting to have read the book and I'm like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I know what that. Yeah. And also, if you want to replicate the journey or follow through, let's see, I'm gonna uh, there is a the travel here where they talk about she lists the year where she went and the year and the locales and whatnot. So you can actually use this not as a travel guide, but kind of like as a reference to like, you know, you have the history with you of like the area. So, all right. I'm gonna move on now to, let me up my notes. Yeah. Next up, we're gonna have the viewing, and I had watched two movies. Um, Last week, uh, yeah, I watched a Japanese liminal thriller horror film called Exit 8. Now, Exit 8 it's based off of a video game that is evidently, I haven't played it, but it is evidently a point of view game where you're trapped in a loop of a subway station hallway to get out, and you have to reach exit 8. And you go through a couple of turns, but you're always going through the same hallway. And the instructions that are given or you learn are that you have to spot the anomalies. If you spot any anomalies, any whatsoever, turn around and go back. If you do not spot any anomalies, you go forward. And that's basically the game. And of course, things then, of course, get weird and unnerving. Some anomalies are more threatening than others, and what have you. I haven't played the game, but you know, it's a liminal horror game, kind of like it's like navigating the back rooms, kind of same kind of like transitional space that you got to go through this uncanny, unnerving thing. White the white noise of the fluorescent lights, the click of the heels on the tile flooring of the subway and everything, and then just you know the occasional flamboyant or shocking anomaly. Like, whoa, wait, hold it. Yeah, turn around and there's suddenly like two guys standing there or something. Um, and if you miss an anomaly, and the anomaly can be subtle. In the film, they have one where like the doorknob is in a different location, or the wording in a sign overhead has changed, or the light fixtures are in a different location. And if you're not paying attention, you can walk past an anomaly. And what happens is that there's a direction sign that starts at 0, and as you go up, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 8, and then you can leave. Um, if you miss an anomaly, it goes down to 0. You restart, and that's the basis of the game, and that's what the kind of like the DNA they're working with. What they did with this film is they have a character named who is called the Lost Man. And he's the primary guy, and he is becomes trapped in the endless loop. And they give him a ticking clock aspect where his what appears to be his ex-girlfriend calls him and lets him know that she's at the hospital and she's learned that she is pregnant. Implication is that he's the father, and he needs to get to the hospital to 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 uh, to resolve this situation. And that's what's kind of like that's the fuel that's driving him. Um, and the film occasionally changes point of view characters. There's a walking man that walks past him repeatedly that we shift over, and then there is a boy that he the lost man um, interacts with. And I felt that despite having a bit of a saggy middle section, overall, I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the set pieces and uh, the unanswered questions and whatnot. And there were many times during my viewing, I watched it on Shudder, where I was like, I'd be going, "It's an anomaly! It's an anomaly! You're not looking!" And when it ended, I was very satisfied with it. I was like, that was not great, but good. Give it like 3.5 out of 5, maybe 4. It's like if you're into that kind of thing, I would recommend it. You know, I am. It's I think it had a better narrative engine than Backrooms did. But you know, they make great companion pieces. This is that. Now, the other one, speaking of endless odysseys, the other one was, of course, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, which has been like had a lot of like really, I mean, the dumbest culture war brickbats hurled at it for the past year, and I'm glad that it's doing well and that it's been predominantly well received. I think there's a couple of aspects of it that, I mean, it's a Christopher Nolan movie. And as I said last week, the previous episode, I kind of run hot and cold with um, Nolan's work. I did not particularly care for his take on Batman. I might be in the minority there. just I remember watching The Dark Knight and just thinking that, oh man, this is so grounded. It's starting to look just silly. I mean, it's like, why is he dressing up in it's just so grounded. I don't understand why he's dressing up in a costume. This is about a guy who dresses up in a costume and, beats up other criminals in costumes. I mean, there's a certain, I wouldn't say cartoonishness to it, but there's a certain level of unreality and whimsy to it that, just doesn't, it got to a point where it was just like uh, the core premise of the film just didn't work for me after a while. I'm like, it was so grounded that I was just kind of like, I checked out. I actually felt that I actually preferred Matt Reeves' Batman and Tim Burton's Batman. I think actually that Matt Reeves' The Batman was a great kind of like middle ground between um, Tim Burton's Batman and Christopher Nolan's Batman. So you had this one that was both grounded but also unapologetically uh, cartoonish or whimsical in certain ways. That is like, yeah, this is set in a reality that is very, very similar to us, but also not us at all. And and it worked for me. It was the kind of approach that just I vibed with. Again, mileage may vary. When we left the theater, I was talking with Tanya, and I said, "Yeah, the Odyssey really did feel like a spiritual sequel to Oppenheimer. It really does have a lot of the same kind of uh, it, themes of trauma, war trauma, and PTSD, and somebody mixed with the the trope that uh, um, Nolan really loves, which is a man attempting to reconnect with his family. That's what it was. That was the narrative engine of Inception. It was in Interstellar, where he wants to find his kids, he wants to get home. Um, and my feelings on the movie were that it was really, really good. I liked it. I loved the Cyclops scene. I loved the Cersei scene, and I was talking with somebody today about how, like, for the most part, um, um, the movie's about like PTSD, and it's about the cost of war and the impact and the negative, the corrosive things that can happen, which may or may not be a deviation from Homer. It's been I haven't read I read the Lattimore translation back in the mid '80s in a in a high and in college, and I also think I read it in high school. But yeah, it's been 40 years plus years since I actually like have read the text. So, but I understand that this is Christopher Nolan's version. This is his interpretation. And if you understand that this is very much kind of like um, it could be to Homer's The Odyssey what Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is to Stephen King's The Shining, where he makes some core changes to the source material that may rub some people wrong, but it worked for me. I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally only Christopher Nolan could have made this movie this way, and it really taken as a Nolan film. I think it's excellent, and they were like, yeah, again, the Hades sequence was just brilliant, and again, I think I kind of got off in the weeds, but most of the battle scenes are pretty harrowing, except at the end, which is when he deals with the suitors. But that is the kind of like catharsis, ass kicking moment that you're just like had been building for like 2.5 hours. You really want to see these assholes get their comeuppance. And boy, do they. And it's really, that is when it leans into or kind of like touches up against to like the action hero wish fulfillment fantasy aspects that, people really like with this kind of material. It's like, yeah. And yeah, and I liked the ending, and it was one of those like, yeah, I'd go see it again. I really enjoyed it. I liked almost every character except a few of the suitors, but everybody else was really, really, really cool. And it made me, want to go back and read. I want to read Emily Watson's translation. I might read that at some point in the future, sometime between now and 2036. I had the Aeneid by Virgil at one point, but I haven't. I don't have it anymore, and that made me want to read the Aeneid because of Elliot Page's character of Simone. I think that was really well handled and uh, really well done. So yeah, this one was 4 out of 5 for me. I'm like, yeah, this is it. This probably is second to Inception. Um, for my I would like watch it again in a heartbeat, and we're probably actually going to go see it a second time on the big screen. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it in IMAX or not, but that's the plan. And so that's it, man. Everything, you know, that's the stuff. Um, as I wind down, um, that what's next on deck reading wise? Well, when I finally polish off the last few pages of The Roads to Rome, the next book I plan on reading, or I'm going to be reading, will be The Man from Avon, which I'm very happy to announce at this particular moment that it is going to be a buddy read with Nick over at the Book Graveyard, and we're gonna do a review of it together. It's just the first time I'm doing something of this, and I'm really looking forward to it. The only books by Michael Avallone that I've read are his novelization of Friday the 13th Part 3, 3D from 1982, and his novelization of The Cannonball Run from 1981. Um, although I did see that Rob over at L Space Archives got the novelization of Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which I believe Avalon wrote. So, and yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. This is the wild card book that I do. I read the oldest book listed in Goodreads, and then I read a book that has been within the last 6 books because it's what's up on the screen. And then there's a wild card book that hasn't been logged in Goodreads yet. This is the wild card book. The oldest book, the next one will be Ghost Talkers by Mary Robinette Kowal, and which is a great story. I mean, it's got a great thing where it's like there's evidently a team of psychics whose job they're in the spirit corps, and this is World War One, and their job is to interview or triage the spirits of soldiers that have died on the front line, and the story of the implications in the story of that. So there's psychics that when somebody dies, they go, "Well, what happened out there? Who's there? What's going on?" And this is here. It says, while channeling a recently dead British soldier, Ginger Stuyvesant, Oberman, a medium in the Spirit Corps, uncovers evidence that he was killed by a traitor working against the Allied forces. So, spycraft, subterfuge, World War One, daring do, maybe I don't know, but I actually I have met and interacted with Mary Robinette Hall on numerous occasions. But it's been a good decade. I think the last time I saw her was in Finland at Worldcon after the Writing Excuses retreat. But I was in one of her writing classes and everything. And yeah, one of the new thing is like yeah, Hugo. I think she's a Hugo winner. Yeah, she is. Walking through Worldcon and everything, and she's walking by and she's like, "Hey, Chad, how you doing?" And I'm like, ah, it's like cool, it's cool, cool. But yeah, I might get to Worldcon again at some point. But you know, I'm going to Pulp Fest next year. Everybody's at Pulp Fest, and I'm like FOMO man. But no, what I got to do is I got to take my nephew to go see Spider-Man. Brand new day, brand new movie, brand new day, brand new week. So until next time, guys, gals, non-binaries, let's all try to have some fun. All right, bye. Enough is never enough.